All right. Carnivore Soldier coming at you from Austin, Texas. This morning's the first video in a series called Mission Carnivore, where we focus on veterans and first responders and how the carnivore diet has affected them. My first guest here is George Goodenough, all the way from across the pond over in the UK, a former soldier, and we're here to hear his story and how carnivore has affected his life. So I'm going to bring him in here.
Hi.
Morning, George. How you doing,
Hi,
man?
Larry. How's it going? I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Oh, fantastic. It's early morning here, 0 dark 30, but I'm used to that, and I know you are too. Why don't you just do a real quick introduction of yourself? Tell me about yourself.
Okay, so my name is George Goodenough. I'm a former soldier. I served just over 8 years in the Army. I'm a veteran of Desert Storm. The beret that I'm wearing is the Intelligence Corps from the British Army, which is what I was in. I was a Middle East specialist, so I speak Arabic and also French. The reason that they sent me to be an Arabic linguist was because I had a high qualification from school and college in French, and they needed linguists at the time. And it's basically because of that I ended up in Desert Storm as an Arabic linguist over there with the 7th Armored Brigade, the Desert Rats. And then when I left the Army, I spent about 10 years as a private military contractor in high-end diplomatic security, not for the British government, but mainly for the Arab governments, the Saudis and people like that. And then I did 6 months in Beirut with the European Commission. So that was quite a good time, if you like. But then after I got married, I've been married 20 years now, so that wasn't the life for a married man. So I settled down in England, did a bit of low-end security for a while, and then discovered the construction industry. I now work as a traffic management specialist in the construction industry. So that's, and I'm 58 years old, just turned 58, so we're about the same age as well, Larry. So, yeah. So we have as you know, we've spoken before. We share a few interests. I'm a former rugby player, and also a John Wayne fan. So hello to Duke.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Duke's right here next to me. I fed him early so he wouldn't be bothering me during this conversation, because he usually eats at about 0500, and I got him up 0400 and fed him at 4:30, so he would not be on my shoulder, because he would be otherwise.
There's a slight danger we might get interrupted by Angus if he turns up. I have a cat called Angus. He's
all right.
So if he turns up, I'll apologise. But I'll introduce him as a fellow carnivore.
Angus sounds like maybe a Scottish name, though, huh?
Yeah, there was a film many years ago. I think it was called Angus something, and it's a film which my wife liked, and he was a Scottish wildcat. So she named Angus after the Scottish wildcat.
There you go. Cool. I've been to Scotland and England. Now, where in England are you?
Right, I'm down in the southwest. I'm in the town of Bridgewater in the county of Somerset. And from what I understand, you have Bridgewater Township in Somerset County in New Jersey, I think, or something like that. From what I was
possibly
told.
It's a big country. I don't know. I mean, Jersey is one of the places I've not really been very often.
Yeah, I was in the Big Apple. I was in the Big Apple many years ago, and I bumped into a guy in a bar, unusually, and he told me that he was from New Jersey, and he lived in Bridgewater Township in Somerset County. So yeah,
that's
I can
awesome.
guarantee there is a place. Yeah. So just to put you in the picture, I'm on the M5 motorway, and I'm halfway in between the city of Bristol and the city of Exeter, down here in England, both of which are big rugby towns, as you may or may not know. They're both big on rugby.
That's awesome. My first introduction to rugby was when I was in high school. We hosted a guy named Mitch from England. He came over as a student in high school, and he was from Sheffield, if you know where that is. And he was a big rugby player, so he introduced me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Northeast of England, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into your carnivore stuff. I'd like to know, what were your reasons behind trying carnivore?
Okay, so my why is basically what we're talking about here. I had to go back to really the Gulf War, and you're probably aware that there's something out there, mystery illness called Gulf War syndrome. So I got to about 40 when I retired from the diplomatic type of security, and really, I guess I took my foot off the gas in many ways, as we all do. And my weight just shot up, and I started feeling really ill, and I had all the symptoms of Gulf War syndrome. Now, at the time, I'd never heard either the term insulin resistance or of metabolic syndrome. So I was barking up the wrong tree for many years, and basically the British government doesn't like to talk about Gulf War syndrome on account of the fact that they're not prepared to pay out anything. So I basically got fobbed off onto an organisation called Combat Stress, although I didn't bother with them because I think I told you I'm a member of the National Golf Veterans and Families Association here in the UK. They were very helpful, and things got so bad in the end that I reached 291 pounds. I could barely walk, couldn't do my shoelaces up. I had to sit down to get dressed, basically. I was seriously ill. I was, a heart attack waiting to happen. So again, the National Health Service, they tried to put me off all the time. I could see in their eyes when I spoke to them that they had nothing but contempt for me because they were blaming me, basically.
Right.
And then the National Golf Veterans and Families Association got involved. They wrote a strongly worded letter to the NHS, and eventually I got some sense out of them. But it wasn't until I had my bloods done that I discovered that I was type 2 diabetic. I was morbidly obese. My triglycerides were 4.7, which is high, in the high range. And my hypertension was up. And obviously I had low HDL and everything. I'm a year ahead of you, Larry. That was on the very beginning of March of 2022. Okay, so now, again, nobody called it metabolic syndrome, and none of the medical people referred to insulin resistance at all. But the one clue that I did get was from an excellent nurse called Kathy Moran. She told me that savoury carbohydrates, starch in other words, turn to glucose in the blood just as much as the sweets, sucrose and fructose does. That gave me a start point. So now my wife, and in January 2022, when I sent you the full picture, and also in December of 21 on Christmas Day, I lost two very good friends, both of whom have put on a lot of weight in recent years, and both of whom dropped dead of a heart attack. One was 69, Colin, he's an ex-Royal Marine, and he was very fit up until that time. And the other one was Tommy, who was drinking an awful lot of those energy drinks, the Monster Energy, Red Bull, and that sort of thing. And again, he put on a lot of weight. Yeah, he put on a lot of weight. And literally, they both dropped dead. So I knew that I was heading that way. I was really a heart attack waiting to happen. So, yeah, so when Kathy told me about the carbohydrates, I went away. The doctor issued me with metformin and statin prescriptions. I put those on the kitchen table and I did some research. Now, I was lucky enough to have a good start point because in about the year 2010, there was a TV chef show in England called the Hairy Bikers. They're called Simon King and Dave Myers. One's from Newcastle, one's from Birmingham. And they're a great pair of lads. And they did a kind of special on type 2 diabetes, how to cook, how to take care of type 2 diabetes. Now, their special guest on that show was a guy called Professor Roy Taylor from Newcastle University. And he absolutely was the pioneer in reversing type 2 diabetes. Now, his method was low calorie, 800 calories a day for 4 weeks, and you will reverse type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
So that was a start point. So I Googled Professor Roy Taylor, and that kind of, you get, the algorithm takes you to other places, as you know, and then the low carb solution came up. This was again in March. So I started going low carb, and I discovered I didn't know anything about YouTube this time. I wouldn't find YouTube until the August. Yeah. So I did find quite a useful American Google site called Healthline. Have you ever come across it?
I have not. I'll check it out. Healthline. Huh?
Right. Okay. Healthline. I find it quite useful. And then when I went back to work and explained to my workmate, Max, his name is Max Bramfit. He's got no medical background, but he told me about ketosis. And he recommended fewer than 50 grams of carbohydrate a day to put myself in ketosis. So I had a start point. Okay, so why? So actually, the first question I've got to answer is my why is because I lost two good friends, and I've lost several people since to diabetes and heart attacks, all of whom I suspect was down to insulin resistance. All in their 50s and 60s, none in their 70s, which is quite frightening.
That's really young.
Yeah. My why is basically because I realised I was a heart attack waiting to happen. I have a wife, two lovely stepchildren, three lovely grandchildren, two cats who are very important to me. The other one's called Hamish, by the way. And he's a bit camera shy. We probably won't see him. So, yeah, that's my why. It's basically I needed to sort myself out mentally and physically so that I could live my life again, enjoy my life again, and look after my wife and our family and pets. So that's my why. That's my reasons.
Yeah, so I've noticed, I mean, being a vet, we have the VA here, which is actually pretty good. I mean, compared to a lot of other countries like yours where you don't really have specified care for veterans, but you still have to be your own advocate, right? Because they are government guidelines only. They look at blood work and they prescribe pills, and that's kind of what they do. And they don't really have like leeway to say, well, you should try diet or you should try this or look into this, you know. In fact, they kind of discourage it. And when you come in with that kind of information, if they prescribe or recommend you take a drug and you don't take it, you have to sign a release saying I'm
Yeah,
not going to take
absolutely.
that,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I should
because
add the fact. I should add the fact that I actually threw away the 2 prescriptions for metformin and statins. I never cashed them in.
fantastic. Congrats, man. So yeah, you do have to be your own advocate, and that's not just military. That's, I think it's everybody, civilian, first responders, whatever. That you have to be your own advocate, especially because all governments are pointing the wrong direction right now, nutritionally. So you just have to know and learn, and you have to become a student. And people like during the last pandemic, people were talking about, you know, making fun of people who do their own research. And back when you and I grew up, we called that reading because we had to learn
Absolutely,
things.
yes.
And that's the only way you could learn was to read. I mean, like I said, I was a retired signal officer and I'm still a wireless network architect. And none of that technology existed when I went to college. I had to
Absolutely.
learn, I had to teach myself. So I did my own research. We had a bookstore called Barnes and Noble out here. I don't know if you have it in the UK, but that's where I did my reading. I would go to Barnes and Noble, and at first I couldn't afford books, so I just read them while I was at the bookstore, and then I build my library up, which you see some behind me there. A lot of those are military and signal books, but I had to do my own research, and that's where we're at now. You have to. You have to read,
Absolutely. Yeah.
become a student, and educate yourself. All right, so that's great that you did that. That's the example. That's how we all are going to get there. All right, so can you tell me about your initial experience when you first started it? What was it like?
Well, I didn't have the advantage of YouTube at the time, so I really was feeling my way blind. It was just Max introduced me to ketosis was the start point. I'd heard of the Atkins diet. I was aware of the Atkins diet,
Right.
so I knew it was low carb. So really, I would say certainly for the first few months, from probably until December of 22, I was focusing on ketosis. So I was still eating low carb veg, avocados, and all those
Mm.
sort of things, and fruit. But I gradually, as I learned and got more savvy, I just started eliminating stuff from the diet, really. And I think I might have mentioned it to you in the past that on Christmas Day last year, we always have Christmas lunch in the UK is turkey with
Uh-huh.
with usually carrots and cabbage or sprouts, always Brussels sprouts and roast potatoes. Now we had the family around last year, so I thought, well, I'll just for the day I'll just I'll eat some of the veg. But I had half a roast potato. I found I didn't really want it, to be perfectly honest with you. And I realised that I was trying to do it to keep other people happy. So if I could, exactly, yeah. So if I could go to the point where I went keto focused to carnivore focused, I would say it was Christmas Day last year, to be perfectly honest with you. But one thing I've got to say, Larry, is I am nowhere near the perfect carnivore. I am definitely
Right.
imperfect. I'm carnivore based, but we'll go through some of what I eat later, and probably that will make your future guest, the lovely Dr. Anthony Chafee.
Yeah.
I'm not as purist. I'm not a purist like him, or even I'm not on the lion diet as you are.
Plants are trying to kill you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, but I eat very very few plants nowadays, to be perfectly
Mhm.
honest with you. But a lot of the meat products that I eat do have trace carbohydrates in as well. And the other thing is, I still drink coffee, and I still use a coffee creamer, which is
Yeah.
called Coffee Mate. Ooh, there it
Yeah.
is.
I see.
And with each cup of coffee, that introduces zero point 0.7 grams of sugar into my bloodstream. But it's
Yeah.
something I can take on the chin because it just makes it more palatable. And at the end of the day, we know that 1 teaspoonful of sugar is 4 grams. So even if I have 4 cups of Coffee Mate creamer in my coffee a day, then I'm getting less than 1 teaspoonful of sugar into my bloodstream. So
Right.
yeah, I say so for our perfectionist brothers and sisters out there. Please forgive me. Please don't give me a hard time in the comment section, because why? It works for me. And I
We all
found
have
it works.
yeah, we all have a different journey, right? I mean, for me, I'm one of those guys that can't do any sugars because I will binge. It'll trigger me. It's like an alcoholic, right? You have guys that can moderate, they can have a drink every now and then. I can have a drink every now and then. I'm not an alcoholic. My dad was an alcoholic. He could not
Yeah,
have a drink today because if he did, it would be a bad week or month or whatever. Who knows? Or bad rest of his life.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah,
everyone
just
has a
yeah,
different journey.
Yeah, but again, we'll touch on the alcohol now, because again, that sets me apart from many of our brothers and sisters in the carnivore, because I'm a very sociable person. Most British soldiers are, and drink alcohol is very much part of our culture, to say the very least. So, in order for me to carry on my social life as normal, I'm still carrying on drinking, but I'm very mindful of what I'm drinking. Now, I'm going to do a quick show and tell here. So, I think my wife still drinks Coca-Cola.
Okay.
So basically, I'm sure you'll recognise that. That is 1 litre of Coca-Cola. Now, I've got some notes over here, which I made earlier. Prior planning and preparation prevents pathetic poor performance.
Right.
Okay, so Coca-Cola, in a litre of Coke, there is 108 grams of sugar. So if I were to drink that, I would be consuming 108 grams of sugar. So I don't have JD and Coke anymore, no whiskey and Coke or anything like that. So the Coke is completely off limits now for me, mainly because of the high fructose corn syrup. However, I still drink. Now I'm going to show you a British lager we have here. It's called Carling.
Okay.
Now that's a 440 milliliter can, and I did the maths, and in a litre of Carling, if I drink a litre of Carling, I'll be consuming 26 grams of carbs, but 0 sugars. So the carbs will turn to glucose, but there's not the devil incarnate, which is fructose in there.
And that's a liter. That's
absolutely,
drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then if I'm eating, sometimes I will drink the wine known as Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh yeah, I drink some wine.
Yeah, it's a very dry white wine. The drier, as you know, the better. The drier it is, the fewer sugars there are. And in a litre of Sauvignon Blanc, you will find 23 grams of carbohydrate and about 6 grams of sugar. So it's not, the Carling is my go-to pub drink, if you like. The Sauvignon Blanc is for special occasions and when I sit down for dinner with my wife. So again, now, obviously, ethanol is a problem. There's no question about that. But my liver's fine. So my theory, I think I told you, is that basically ethanol is a problem when it's competing with fructose in the liver. If you eliminate the fructose, then the liver seems to have no problems with ethanol. It just processes it and gets rid of it. But if you overload with fructose as well, through fruits, through any of the sucrose-containing foods, and especially the Coca-Colas, then the liver gets confused. It gets overwhelmed. Basically, it's like it's like if you've got a defensive circle out in the field, and you get overpowered by the enemy. There are just too many of them. Then you get overrun. But if the enemy come in, a few at a time, hell, you can deal with it.
It's like
and that's pretty much
John Wayne.
what they do. Yeah.
John Wayne circling the wagons and the Indians coming in, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So as long as there aren't too many of them, in this case ethanol and fructose, then the liver can circle the wagons and successfully fight it off. But to me, my social life is very important because I like to enjoy life.
Me too.
I think I sent a photo. I was in the pub with my veteran buddy yesterday. Yeah. So, but as I said, if I found that it wasn't working, then I would take measures. But at the moment, I'm flying. I really am health-wise. So so we touched on the coffee and the alcohol, and just one other little naughty which I have. As you know, I'm a limey. So this is the lime juice cordial, and I have I just flavour water with it. It's not really, and there's just a tiny amount of sugar in there. But it doesn't trigger any cravings for me.
So I started my career in the Navy. I don't know if I told you this. I was on fast attack submarines from 84 to 90. And I actually served with some Brits. We hosted a submarine that came in the 80s, and we had a great time because those guys have alcohol on their submarine and we didn't. But we had some good times. But I think the term limey actually came from the Royal Navy, correct? When they would eat limes to prevent scurvy? That
is correct. And there's another interesting, so I've done a bit of research here, but apparently we have what's called forgotten knowledge. Apparently prior to the limes, fresh meat was regarded as a cure for scurvy.
Really? That makes sense because I don't have scurvy. You don't look like you have scurvy.
No, absolutely not. Look it up on the internet. Google fresh meat and scurvy, and you will find that actually before the lime, the problem that these sailors had is they were eating basically jerky, or they were eating preserved meats, and they're eating hardtack. So any vitamin C that was in that was processed out of it. But before the lime juice was discovered, fresh meat was known to be a cure for scurvy. So
interesting.
This is the vitamin C question mark is the elephant in the room when it comes to carnivore. But I'm happy with it. you're happy with it. Anthony Shapey,
Well,
Kelly Hogan's been carnivore forever, and she doesn't exactly look ill, does she?
and burger patty carnivore, like the worst you could think, the dirtiest carnivore, like
Yeah,
McDonald's burger patties, is her go-to. So, and I do that
exactly.
sometimes. So
Yeah,
you do have to, as part of being your own advocate too, I think, is learning your body and doing introspection and because everyone's body's different. So not just learning carnivore, but learning you and how your hunger signals work and what things are triggers and what aren't. And that's part of honing your skill and craft as a carnivore, just like you do in your career. You have to become
absolutely.
better at it. So I got a next question. How has it affected your physical health?
Oh, crikey, unbelievably, it really is. Okay, so again, I'm going to go to my notes. I got my diagnosis in the early part of March 2022. Kath Moran told me about carbohydrates then, as in starches. So the first thing I did, went away and cut out all the C's and the P's, I think I might call it. We'll go for cakes, chocolate, confectionery, in other words, candy, to use the American term. Chips, as in
Crisps?
what? Yeah, exactly, Chris. Yeah, okay, yeah. So, but also chips, as in fried potato, what you call French
Fries.
fry.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
for the benefit of our American viewers, potato chips in the States are crisps here in the UK, and French
Right.
fries are chips here in the UK. So they all went, and then we move on to the peas. So pastry, pasta, pizza, potato. There's four of the peas, and we can add on rice and noodles at that. So that's the first thing I did. Now, I wasn't, I was feeling my way blindly. So that was the very beginning of March. And then in March 21st, I think it's about, which is 2022, which is, I think, exactly a year ahead of you. I think you were March 22nd, if I'm right.
Yep. March 22nd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm exactly a year ahead of you because that's when I started taking it seriously. So I bought a set of scales. So just, when I got measured, when I got weighed at the beginning of March 2022, I weighed in at 133 kilos, which was take off a kilo for clothes, 132 kilos, which I've got the transversion, 291 pounds. So I was 291 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Now, when I bought a set of scales on March 21st, so 3 weeks later, having cut out all the above mentions to begin with, I was 278 pounds. So without even trying, other than cutting out the bread, the pasta, the pizza, blah, 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 I'd lost 13
Yeah.
pounds without really taking it seriously. But I do remember that I was watching a sports event in the pub on about March 11th, I think it was. And when the guys wanted to get a packet of crisps, instead I had a packet of pork scratchings, pork rinds, you call them
Pork
over there.
rinds. Yeah.
And I had a jar of cockles, pickled cockles, so seafood and pork rinds. So just again, there'll be a few show and tells during this. So here we have the Mr. Porky pork scratchings. They
Nice.
are the standard pub type. They are 16 grams of pork rinds, pork scratchings, per 0.1 of a gram of carbohydrate, versus a packet of potato crisp chips, which is about, I think, 23 grams or thereabouts. So that was a replacement therapy, which I did, and it works. And I still do eat the Mr. Porky pork scratchings as a treat, if you like, or as a snack. So, but then by July, I was feeling so much better that I thought, well, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to ask for another set of bloods, which I did. And that was August the 4th when I weighed 238 pounds by this time. So from basically March the 5th until August the 4th. So I think we're talking probably 5 months. I'd gone from 291 to 238 pounds. So I went in fairly confident, had all my bloods done, had a routine appointment booked, phone call on August the 22nd with my diabetes nurse, a guy called Richard. But on August the 9th, I got an urgent phone call from my surgery, from Sandra, the head diabetes nurse there. And I was worried. I thought, I've really made a mistake here, and she's going to tear me a new one. And I said, oh no, shall I be worried? No, she said, no. She said quite the opposite. She said, what have you done? So I said, well, what do you mean? She said, you haven't got diabetes anymore. She said,
Wow.
You've lost, however many pounds that is. And not only that, she said, but your triglycerides have gone from 4.7 to 1.2. And your HDL has gone through the roof. She said, oh, your LDL has gone up as well. She said, but don't worry about that because we're forward thinking and we only worry about the HDL to triglycerides ratio. So it's nice to have a forward thinking diabetes team. So she said, how did you do it? I said, well, I've just gone low carb. I just virtually eliminated carbohydrates, something like that. But remember, at this time, I never even heard of carnivore. I was still very much focusing on ketosis. But I was still, I was still making mistakes, like I was eating citrus fruits, that sort of thing, sweet citrus fruits. But I'd already achieved the main goal of getting rid of diabetes, losing a lot of weight, and especially getting rid of the dangerous triglyceride levels. So by that point, I was no longer a heart attack waiting to happen. And then in that same month, it would have been between August the 4th and August the 22nd when my regular diabetes nurse phoned me up for the appointment. He said, I'm not supposed to be doing this, he said, because Sandra, he said, I just want to know. I want to know what you did. So I had a chat with him. But I remember by this time, so I remember telling him I discovered YouTube. Now, the first thing that I discovered on YouTube was the angelic and late and much lamented Dr. Sarah Hallberg. Do you know of Dr.
I don't
Sarah?
know. I'll take a look.
Oh, crikey, man. You've got to. You have to. Go on YouTube and put Dr. Sarah Hallberg, reversing type 2 diabetes starts with ignoring the guidelines. It's a TEDx talk. So basically, Sarah, who unfortunately died of metastatic cancer, I think in 2022, last year in April, that was obviously not, in no way can she blame her diet, but she was just unlucky. But this TEDx talk was in 2015. And it's 18 minutes and 6 seconds, which basically turned my life around. And it's, anybody out there, anybody who hasn't seen it, get on there and watch it. Reversing the guidelines, reversing type 2 diabetes starts ignoring the guidelines. So she's basically a rebel. And that talk inspired me. And she made me realize that reversing type 2 diabetes was quite common. But by that time, I'd already done it myself. I'd already achieved it myself.
I've got friends that have type 2 diabetes. I can't wait till they see this video because I tell them about this. And you're the first person I've talked to that I know that actually reversed it. That's great. Yeah.
She's a very, very powerful speaker. We miss her so much in the low carb community. And believe me, when you see her, you'll understand why. So make sure we watch that today. And make sure we share it amongst your type 2 diabetes friends as well.
I'll find it and put a link in the description for this video so easily.
Exactly. So then basically, so we've worked, the key people were really the hairy bikers we talked about, Professor Roy Taylor, who was low calorie, my workmate Max Branford, nurse Kath Moran, then Healthline, and then in August 22, I discovered Dr. Sarah Hallberg, and at the same time, I discovered Dr. Jason Funn, and it's through him that I understood insulin resistance. He explains insulin resistance very, very well. And then from the UK, a guy that you're familiar with, Dr. David Unwin. He's nowhere near Carnivore, but he's very much a low carb advocate. And then the absolutely adorable Zoe Harkham, PhD from Cardiff University. She's so funny. If you haven't watched any of the stuff I've asked you to watch, then please do, because she is hilarious. She really. My two favourites of hers are "Should we be vegan?" And as she comes on, the short answer is the requirement for carbohydrates is 0 in the diet. Therefore, no, we shouldn't be vegan.
Right.
But she goes on to speak for 45 minutes, and she tears apart the vegan case about the planet, about being kind to animals, and about health. Well worth watching. And the other one is, what about fibre? And again, she induces it saying, right, fibre is all carbohydrate requirements in the human diet, 0. Therefore, no, we don't need fibre. But she goes on to explain how dangerous fibre is. And actually, now we're touching on the subject of fibre, I can say that when I finally got round to eliminating all the cruciferous, the low-carb vegetables from my diet, guess what happened? My IBS went away. No more bloating, no more constipation, no more flatulence, no more straining on the toilet, no more straining on the toilet. And
it's amazing. You're not fermenting stuff in your gut.
Exactly. Yeah. No more fermentation. And so basically, I can tell you now that I've actually just this week I decided to actually sort of start recording my bowel movements. And Monday morning there was one, and there wasn't another one until Saturday morning. So 5 days, and again, but it's not constipation. Absolutely,
I do that all the time.
It's not constipation, because when the time comes, you say, "Oh, I need to go and use the bathroom," and you go, and it's all over. And it's all over in about 5 minutes, as opposed to sitting there straining for 20 minutes when you've been eating all that so-called healthy fibre. So so that's my take on fibre. That was eliminating fibre was one of the big things.
Once you understand that fibre is just stuff you can't digest, then why would you eat it? And it's like Anthony Chafee says, why not just eat plastic bags? Because it does the same thing. You can't digest it. It fills you up. And I feel very resentful about fibre, because unfortunately all that straining on the toilet over the years is that I've got a hernia now. So I can manage it. But I just think that if I discovered Carnivore when I was 16 instead of 56, that hernia probably never would have come. It doesn't really interfere with my life too much. I'm just aware of it. I can't do any heavy lifting or anything, but I don't seem to need to, because I don't do much exercise, but I'm doing well. Oh, I don't either. My son is 14 and he's gone carnivore. And this summer he went because he wanted to heal an injury. He saw me healing up and he wanted to heal his foot. Well, he shaved 2 minutes off his personal record in his first two races and beat guys he's never beat. And he's 10 pounds
absolutely.
lighter and just looks, I mean, looks great. And I'm like, well, there you go. So he's totally
Yeah.
100% sold now. He's like, all right, I can't imagine being 14 and finding this because
I
he's
know.
got his
Oh,
whole
God.
life. I would have been a beast. I was good in
Me
college.
too. Me too.
I would have been a beast on the rugby pitch,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
I feel the same way. Actually, it's one of the in the vegan episode from Zoe Harkin, she flags up an Australian athlete who is the poster girl of the vegan movement, and apparently she is like the best in Australia. But at the Olympics, she finished 24th. So Zoe asked the question, "What were the other 23 in front of her eating?" So,
Yeah, exactly.
so that was a typical Zoe comment. So yeah, so that's fibre gone. And the other thing I really need to touch on is seed oils.
Yeah.
Like yourself, when I discovered about seed oils, I threw them out. I did not give them to the local charity or anything. They went straight in the bin. So now my frying is done in lard, or what we call in this country beef dripping. I think tallow is the other name for it. It's all done. And one thing which I do is I use it fairly sparingly. But when I fry my eggs, I usually have 3 eggs on ham, for example. Instead of scooping the eggs out with a slice, I just pour the whole contents of the frying pan onto the plate. So I get all the liquid lard or liquid beef dripping as well, which adds flavour to the meal and also
healthy fat.
I'm getting the benefit of it. Saturated fat, exactly right. Anyway, so to go back to where we were, right, so we'll touch on mental health in a minute.
Okay.
But the weight loss really has progressed since. So March 2022, 291 pounds. This morning I weigh in every day. I'm a bit obsessive compulsive about it. And this morning I saw a new low, 201 pounds. So I've lost 90 pounds in 18 months. And again, I'm far from being a perfect carnivore. So but it's working for me. It's working for me.
I don't know if you've seen Dr. Chris Kenobi's seed oil
I'm aware of that, that one. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
After seeing that, I'm pretty much convinced that the processed foods of sugar, refined wheat, seed oils, and trans fats are the 99% of the problem. And if you just remove those from your diet, you'd be well on your way to a very healthy lifestyle. Now, carnivore just is icing on the cake. It basically finishes it and gets you to the optimum, not just being healthy, but optimum fuel, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, because of the alcohol and some of the processed meat products I eat, I'm not in that optimal space. However, as you can see from my progress, I'm where I want to be.
And I'll be posting those pictures when I edit this, so they'll see the pictures. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, so the after picture was taken in June of this year when I was 210 pounds. So I've lost a further 9 pounds since the after picture was taken. So yeah, so 90 pounds, 18 months, not perfect carnivore. I'm happy with that, Larry. I'm happy with that.
Oh yeah, you're healthy.
Yeah, I think probably if I sneak in a cheeky 36-hour fast next week, I reckon I can drop below 200 pounds for the first time. For the first time, well, probably since I went up to the Himalayas in the year 2000, so 23 years ago.
Wow.
High altitude, I got down to about 195 pounds or thereabouts after spending 3 weeks in the Himalayas. So that was the last time I was anywhere near that weight. Yeah.
I'm the lowest weight I've been since the 90s.
Yeah.
When I came back in the military, I was 240, and I'm at 234 right now, so lost 46 pounds. Yeah, I was at 280. And when I was at 280, I had to sit down to tie my shoes. I couldn't literally tie my shoes. My gut was just too big. Yeah. Terrible.
So, so this time last year, as I said, so you're 6 months in, I was 291 to 238. So say 230 by September. So, yeah, I lost about 60 pounds at that time.
Yeah. But
I probably because I'm 5'10", I probably had more to actually lose than you did when you started. So I think you were 6'2.5", 6'3", or there.
Yeah, 6'2.5". Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably had more. So I was 60 pounds down. You're 46 pounds down. So I've added another third of that. So if you add another third to yours, you're probably looking at least 70 pounds by the time you reach the 18-month point.
I think 225. 225 is my playing weight, and I'd like to get back to that. If I get down to 225, so that's not even, because I've still got a lot of muscle too. And I stayed until 2019, so I was still in pretty good shape most of my life till I was 52, 53.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. So you're not far off target. You're on target, and your goal is reachable now, which is good.
yeah,
So that's
for
brilliant.
sure.
Hopefully that people like you and I will be, what do you call it, inspiration, leaders by example for
That's the idea.
for the people who are watching this. And we just got to get the message out there, Larry. There's, as you said on your how to get into the fight video, we have very, very powerful forces aligned against us. Big pharma, big food, the medical industry, because the medical industry gets funded by big pharma and by big food, and even the diabetic associations. Remove diabetes, you remove their reason for existence.
They're out of business. And the Heart
Exactly.
Association and these cancer organizations, you start cutting down on cancer and heart attacks and diabetes, and they're all going out of business. Yeah, that's
absolutely. Yeah. So it's up to us YouTubers to all band together, and let's not go so cult carnivore that we forget the low carb community as well. The people like Dr. David Unwin. We
Ketovore.
We all sit or low carb, high fat. I'm actually been in contact with a doctor called Campbell Murdoch. He's out there on the YouTube as well recently. He is a low carb doctor, but he's worried about excluding people. So he talks about metabolic health recording regimes. He wants to call it metabolic health nutrition because he's afraid of scaring people away. You'll find Campbell Murdoch out there. He's done a couple of YouTubes. So yeah, if you want to have a look at him, he's a local doctor to me, and I've been in contact with him. So that's quite interesting. But he's from the low carb community. Right. Well, have you noticed any change in mental health since? Oh yeah, crikey! You wouldn't believe it when you don't feel good about yourself.
I would actually. I would believe it. Our viewers might not believe it.
I know you would. Absolutely, but no. When you're feeling ill, when you've got skin problems, when you feel ugly, when you can't do your shoelaces up, when you've got shooting pains going up through your thighs every time you put your foot down, when you can't really walk anymore, you don't feel good about yourself. However, as you get into ketosis stroke carnivore, the weight comes off, you go back to the doctor and they tell you haven't got type 2 diabetes anymore. They tell you you're no longer a heart attack waiting to happen. What happens? Your mental health goes through, basically your mood becomes buoyant. But not only that, I used to be a real stressed person.
Yeah.
Even the little things would stress me, like driving. Oh God, that was an absolute nightmare. Yeah. But nowadays, I just take my time. I put on a bit of music, and I just don't stress like I used to. Nothing seems to faze me like it used to. I've walked out of jobs, lost friendships because my mental health was very poor. And of course, all the time I was blaming Gulf War syndrome, but it wasn't. It was metabolic syndrome. And the two, if you look up the symptoms of Gulf War syndrome, you will find that they're the same. They're the same as metabolic syndrome. So so my mental health, I'm sleeping better. When I was at my worst, my bladder was waking me up every hour and a half every night. So you can imagine that when you're short of sleep, that adds to your stress as well. So
that's my next question.
Go on. Go on. That's fine. Yeah. Well, I think I just answered it. I'm sleeping far better now because my bladder doesn't wake me up every hour and a half anymore. I still have to get up for the old man's bathroom visit once a night, but that's a lot different from four or five times a night. So I think that covers sleep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I tell people now that a lot of people focus on the weight loss because it's dramatic and it's quick and it's amazing. But there's another weight that weighs in on first responders and especially military veterans, and it's just the unseen weight. And it's probably all civilians, but we have a little more, I think, just because our nature of our business. And when that weight comes off your shoulders, it's amazing. That's almost better than the weight loss. Weight loss is huge, but
the weight loss is obviously good for your health, but I would say it's also kind of what's cosmetic. It's kind of a vanity thing. It's far more important what's going on in your body. Obviously it is the visual expression of getting better health. And actually, another important thing to talk about weight loss is that it gets other people interested because people don't notice that your triglycerides are low. They don't notice that you haven't got type 2 diabetes anymore. What they do notice is the fact that you're disappearing before their eyes, and they're interested, and they want to talk about it because a lot of people are slightly overweight, nothing like I was. But how did you do it? Why did you do it? How did you do it? So I've become a bit of a carnivore bore in the pub, to be honest with you. My wife can't stand it because she hears it all. She hears it all the time. She said, "You're part of a cult." And I say, no, we're not a cult, we're a community, because we're a community of like-minded people. If we were a cult, then we'd all worship Dr. Anthony Chaffee and we'd all be on the lion diet. But
It's a brotherhood, like the military.
Exactly, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But don't forget the sisters.
I include sisters in that.
Absolutely,
sure.
because we have to include Kelly, because she's Kelly Hogan, because she's one of the leading proponents of carnivore. So so we're a sorority, fraternity, brotherhood, sisterhood, community. I think is the word which catches it. Catches it nicely. So,
okay,
there we go.
So let's go to motivation. How do you stay motivated to stay on this diet? Isn't it hard? Don't you find it restrictive?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So people ask me, they say, what do you miss? I say, I miss ice cream. I miss chocolate. I miss cake. I miss cookies. I miss rice. I miss spaghetti bolognese. Oh, God, I love spaghetti bolognese. Hell, I love Marmite on toast. But then they go, well, how do you do it? And I say, well, what I don't miss is 6.5 stone, as we call it in England, or 90 pounds of extra fat. I don't miss feeling like shit every day. Crap every day.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay, this is usually not the BBC, it's true. That's right, yeah. And I certainly don't miss being a heart attack waiting to happen, and I certainly don't miss having high triglycerides in my blood. And so yes, I think you've touched on this. The carnivore solution to type 2 diabetes is simple. It is so simple, it's unbelievable. But what it's not is easy. Because if you're addicted to carbohydrates, it's a bit like, I've been able to give up carbohydrates mostly, but if you asked me to give up alcohol, that would be a step too far for me. So, but for many carb addicts, it's already a step too far for them. They still carry on. They know about carnivore. They want to have the success of carnivore, but they love their carbohydrates. It's like when we went out for lunch yesterday and everybody had the puddings, creme brulees and the lemon meringue pies and that sort of thing. And I sat there with my black coffee, but I could easily have eaten that, but I didn't want to because it's just not worth it. And I don't suffer the cravings anymore like I used to. It's strange. I think the palate or the tongue has about 5 different taste triggers: salt, sweet, sour, something else. I think there's 5. But when you're a carb addict, all the time you can taste the sweetness in your mouth. But now, if I get cravings, it's the salt part of my tongue, part of my palate, which triggers. I want salt. So the pork scratchings, for example, or fried eggs, and I put extra salt on the fried eggs. That seems to satisfy my cravings now more than I don't have any chocolate cravings anymore. Going through keto, I weaned myself off chocolate. I went through the 85% dark chocolate, 85% cocoa dark chocolate. Not anymore. I just don't need it anymore, Larry. It's as simple as that. But I am actually quite glad that, and again, if you've got any new people who are just interested, just starting out, then there's nothing wrong with doing what I did, which is weaning yourself through keto and gradually eliminating stuff until you get to carnivore. Because remember, when I reversed type 2 diabetes, I'd never even heard of carnivore. I'd only heard of ketosis. So so anybody who wants to become a carnivore, don't be afraid to go through ketosis first. Just count the carbs, gradually eliminate the bad stuff. Obviously, immediately eliminate the sugars, as in the what we went through earlier, the C's and the P's, as I called. But if you want to carry on with a little bit of fruit, vegetables, etc., it worked for me. So
stick to whole foods. Eliminate the processed foods. Exactly, and that's really 90% of it.
Absolutely. And bring yourself through ketosis to carnivore. If you try and jump into carnivore straight away, you might suffer the explosive diarrhea, which I think Joe Rogan talked about.
I did.
And all those, exactly. You see, I never did because I graduated onto carnivore rather than jumping, rather than jumping straight in. And like I said, I'm far from a perfect carnivore now. I don't know if we can go through what I eat, but we can do. And I if people want to know the details of my diet, then we can do that. I've got a show and tell here if you want to do that.
You're prepared. Yeah, I like it. I think the for me, and because I'd done keto before and I'd cycled on and off that during my military career to get ready for my record physical tests and such, to make sure I was trim and performing the best. But I knew that every time I did keto, I always planned to stay on it forever, but then I always fell off because I introduced keto foods that triggered me because they're called keto, or they were processed foods and they were just called keto. And after a while, I realized. So when I did this, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to reintroduce things like that. I'm just I'm going to have to stay strict, which is fine because I don't miss it at all anymore. Absolutely, it's great. So, like I said, it's self-discovery too. So, for some people, weaning off. I've heard people that just switch meals out. They get rid of all the processed foods, go to Whole Foods, and then like maybe have breakfast just be all carnivore, right? It's just meat and eggs, and then breakfast and lunch all carnivore, and then breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and kind of progress that way, and slowly change that gut microbiome over. For me, it was murder. I just murdered the old gut microbiome and brought in all the all the meats and just suffered through it. But it was
All or
worth it
nothing.
because I was done in 2 weeks, right? And in 2 weeks, I was 100%. I was like, all right, I'm back. And my energy started to come back quick. So it just depends what you want to do. And you have to know your body. If you don't know your body, you can try one way. If you find yourself failing too much, go the other way. Go burn your
Yeah,
ships like Cortez did and go
absolutely. Yeah.
100%.
That's interesting you say that you're back, because it reminds me, I was working with a fellow veteran in 2022 before, when I was up to 290 pounds or whatever it was. And I saw him for the first time the other day. And the first words he said to me was, "You're back." He looked
Yeah,
at me, he looked at the new me, he said, "You're back."
you're
So,
back. You're back like you were,
yeah,
right?
exactly. That's right. Yeah. So that's quite a good say. Yeah, I'm back. When it comes to my mental health, yeah, my physical health, I'm back. Same
I
as you.
think that's a huge deal because well, also the mental health thing. Like now, I look forward to my future and I look forward to it. I'm not just living days out. I'm planning. I'm like, man, this is a great life going forward. From this point forward, it's looking amazing to me. And when I was 6 months ago, before I started this, I was not looking forward to anything. I was just surviving day to day. I was kind of existing. And now I'm not no longer existing. I'm planning, I'm driving, I'm going forward. And it's night and day for me.
Yeah, again, when I was worried about golf ball syndrome, I thought that I didn't have a future really, and I was trying to
Right.
get a diagnosis because I still got a mortgage on the house, so I still got to pay
Yeah.
that, and I was really worried that I was soon going to be unable to work. But now I am fully able to work again. I can't do heavy
Yeah.
lifting because of the hernia, but traffic management doesn't involve heavy lifting. But I can walk around site now easily. At the moment, I have to manage two sets of incoming lorries, trucks, which are delivering stone, and they're about a quarter of a mile apart. So I've got to keep fleeing in between. So I've got to walk a quarter of a mile there, quarter of a mile back. So I'm probably
You
doing
get your
about
steps
five,
in.
six. Yeah, I'm getting my
Yeah.
steps in every day. There's no question about it.
That's awesome.
Back in March 2022, I would not have been able to do that, but I can do now. Yeah, my knees are still a bit stiff, but that's
Yeah.
probably what you call vet body, which is over the
Yeah, vet
years.
bod.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, the
I got
but
some of
the
that.
yeah the everything else in my body has come back apart from my knees, but they're nothing like as bad as they were 18 months ago.
Hey, why don't you
I
go
walk.
through and show me some of your food?
Okay, so right,
Let's do
yeah,
show and
right. So
tell.
yeah, do show and tell. So right, this is Monday to Friday. Okay, this is what I take to work. I work Monday to Friday in construction. At the weekends, things vary up a little bit, but Monday to Friday, I'm in what you call a routine, my system. So the first thing is, right, I've just been to Aldi this morning, so I've got everything fresh, ready to show and tell.
Okay.
So the first thing that my go-to I have one of these every day at work, Monday to Friday. So
Roast
there's
chicken.
five
Yeah.
five or six chicken thighs in there, pre-cooked, so I don't have to bother with. I can either microwave them, have them hot, or I can eat them cold. Secondly, well, we'll go to everybody's go-to standard, which is eggs, basically. I mean, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
really need to show them, but those are Aldi eggs.
Right.
So on a Sunday, and I will be doing this a bit later on, I hard boil 15 eggs. So that's 3 a day, Monday to Friday. My method of doing that is putting them in cold water, bringing them to a rolling boil for 1 minute, switching the heat off, and then leaving them overnight to cool down. And then you get the perfect, well, I find the perfect hard-boiled egg. Just a little tip for the listeners there.
Nice.
Now, the next one is not everybody's cup of tea, but it is very much mine, and it's vitally important in my view. I have here smoked mackerel fillets. Okay,
Okay.
they're low carb and absolutely full of omega-3.
Yeah.
Omega-3 being the really good polyunsaturated fatty acid. Now there's a packet of 4 there, so I have 2 of those every day with my lunch. The other thing I should explain is that I tend to eat in the mornings at work, so I will
Okay.
eat between about 8 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Also at work, so we've got eggs, chicken. Right, this is the most controversial. This is a bit naughty, and I'm sure some of our purists will not like me for doing this. These are called
What is that?
frikadellen. They're frikadellen. They're German meatballs. Now
Oh.
these are 81% fat pork, 81% pork, and again my notes. They contain 21 grams of fat for each one of those. So I have one of those.
Wow.
But there are some naughties in there as well. For example, there's 6% onion, 5% breadcrumbs, and there's a bit of canola oil in there as well. But on balance, I've already eaten the omega-3 with the smoked mackerel. So that little bit of omega-6, I don't think it's going to do too much damage because my omega-3 to omega-6 ratio is going to be very, very good. And yeah, they're satisfying. 81% pork, 21 grams of fat. So I just ignore the few naughties that are in there. And
I eat some processed meats too.
Yeah,
I eat beef sticks that are organic, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, but they do have some bad stuff in it. So yeah, you have to.
Exactly right. And then basically that's what I eat at work. If I'm hungry in the evenings, my go-to is good old Aldi cooked ham trimmings.
Okay.
So what I do then is if I'm hungry, I might just have literally a couple of slices straight out of the fridge. If I actually feel like I want a meal, I will lay out the few ham slices on a plate, fry off 3 eggs, or scramble 3 eggs, and have those over the top of those. So that will be my evening meal. So Monday to Friday, that is pretty much all I eat, apart from maybe the occasional packet of pork scratchings. That's if I get home in the evening, I'm really not hungry, but I fancy something salty, then I'll have a packet of pork scratchings. So that's my Monday to Friday. At the weekend I've got a bit more time, so I'll fry some bacon for breakfast, for example, with scrambled eggs. Might put a sausage on there. And then Saturday afternoon in the summer, we often have a barbecue, which I think we talked about. So that's when the beef kicks in, the pork and the lamb kicks in. Yeah. And I usually allow myself up to half a raw onion, because I do like the flavour of raw onion. As we know, raw onion is very low carb anyway.
Right.
It's not particularly high in fibre. And then on a Sunday, again, I'll have a fried breakfast, as in bacon and eggs. And in the afternoons, myself and my wife Lainey will have a special cut of meat. So it might be beef, might be lamb, might be a duck. Yeah. I think this afternoon we got pork chops.
Premium meat.
Sundays is my premium meat day. Yeah. Although, of course, sometimes that will actually go back in the fridge. So I will have some premium meats to take on a Monday and Tuesday to work. So that's my week. Monday to Friday, I'm carnivore, pure. Well, not exactly pure carnivore because I eat processed meat, but I'm pretty much completely carnivore. The other thing to touch on is social events. Now, I'm very mindful of where I go. There is a brilliant pub up the road called the Malt Shovel, which serves nothing but 1 kilogram of chicken wings. So that's a perfect carnivore solution. And when I go to the local Turkish restaurant, I order off the starter menu. So I order 2 or 3 meat starters. And that comes with a little bit of salad garnish, which I just polish up because it's just tiny, and I don't want to be rude and send it back. And again, it has no deleterious effect, so that's no problem.
Right.
And I think we touched on the subject of Christmas. Now, I'm going to a friend's house this year, and they know that I'm carnivore now, so they will only be serving me the turkey. They will not tempt me with the roast potatoes. I would be tempted anyway. But I think I mentioned to you something called pigs in blankets.
Oh yeah, I know pigs in blankets. Yeah.
You do? Is it a thing in the States?
Yeah, where you get a pastry and roll it around a little hot dog or a little sausage.
No, it's not a pastry. No, it's not a pastry. That's a sausage roll in this country. Okay, so I've got.
Okay, what's pig in blanket there?
Pigs in blankets. So I've got. I don't know if you can. You probably.
Oh, bacon.
That. Bacon wrapped around a sausage. Exactly. Yeah.
That's better than ours.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I can. So if you want to bring pigs in blankets stateside, and maybe you and I can go into business together, and we can and we can get it going. Yeah. So this year our hostess Annie has said, you'll be getting the turkey and you'll be getting a double portion of pigs in blankets with the gravy. So that's
awesome.
That's how I'm dealing with the social side of things.
But see, the fact that you're planning ahead, that is a huge deal. And a lot of people just let life happen. They just show up hungry and then they fail because they didn't, plan ahead before that. And also
my wife Lainey is doing the starter this year. She's doing prawn cocktail, but I'm just going to have prawns with a bit of salt and vinegar on them. So without the cocktail salt. And then I think Glenn, my buddy who I told you about yesterday, I think he's doing the dessert. But I said I will take a cheese board. So I'll be taking some cheddar, some Stilton, and some French
there you go.
cheeses. It's low carb, basically. I do eat cheese at the weekend because every Sunday after this, I'll be going out to meet my friends at the pub. And Mike, our landlord, always puts a bit of Stilton and a bit of cheddar out on the bar. And I don't mind eating that because, again, it's low carb, it's dairy. It kind of fits into the carnivore, so no.
I do some cheese. I mean, last night I made ice cream. My sister and brother-in-law came over, and I made some ice cream with egg yolk and heavy whipping cream in my ice cream machine, and just a little bit of vanilla, no sweetener, and it was great. I mean, once you've been off sugars for a long time, that's sweet enough, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just a quick point for our UK listeners: heavy whipping cream translates to double cream in this country.
Thank
any
you.
UK, any UK, yeah, I'm having to do. I do, as you notice in my emails to you, I do
I saw
a little bit of
conversions.
translation for.
Well,
Exactly, that's right.
I could tell you're an Intel guy because you're very detailed on that, which is good.
Yeah,
I worked
absolutely.
in
Yeah,
the skiff a little bit too. I mean, I was a signal guy, but I did work with our Intel a lot. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a saying in the British Army: attention to detail. So
yep,
it's
we had the same in ours. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
So
good.
last question we got. I want to give you the floor. What would you recommend? Well, would you recommend the carnivore diet due to other military veterans or first responders? And if so, what advice would you give them on starting?
Well, firstly, definitely, I would recommend it, and I think that just this conversation we've actually covered that because I've explained in detail how in 18 months I went through knowing nothing and then stumbling my way in the dark with a few helping hands from people like Max and Kathy Moran and Healthline. They did some good keto stuff, and I think, to be honest with you, Larry, rather than trying to jump in head first, feet first into carnivore, I think I was quite lucky not to hear about carnivore until August of last year, because it meant that I kind of went through an elimination phase of ketosis. So I think I was much more mentally and physically prepared for carnivore when it came than what I would have been had I thought, oh yeah, carnivore, I'm just going to jump straight into that.
Yeah.
Because, I went through the phase of eating 85% chocolate. I went through avocados, asparagus, olives, and all of those sort of stuff. So I literally weaned myself off carbohydrates until eventually, I say Christmas Day last year, I realised don't think I made a conscious decision to go, I'm now carnivore. I just suddenly realised, I suddenly kind of realised I was a carnivore, rather than actually deliberately making that decision. I cannot, like you, do right. That was day one of carnivore, but I think I can probably date my carnivore experience back 9 months now, back to Christmas Day of 2022. So my recommendation is, if you want to follow the chief here, jump in with both feet, do so. But if you want to follow me and gradually wean yourself off, change your mindset. Oh, that's the other thing. I had to completely change my mindset. I had to unlearn everything, all the crap that we've been taught about fiber, about carbohydrates, cholesterol, everything else. And that took time, because I kept on, subconsciously, I kept on thinking, oh yeah, greens are good for you. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, carbohydrates, we're supposed to be but it took me a little time to change my mindset, but my mindset is completely 100% changed now. And so it does take time to change your mindset. Yeah. So my advice would be, do it your way. If you want to follow Chief Larry here, jump in. If you want to follow me, do it slowly. But you've got to realize that your subconscious, your mindset, what you've been taught will try and slow you down. There's no question about that. You just got to overcome that. I've succeeded. Here I am, 90 pounds down what I was in March of last year. And that was a slow process in terms of going through ketosis to carnivore. So yeah, I would say to anybody out there, veterans, first responders, or any of our civilian brothers and sisters, just do it and watch the Chiefs' resilience things. Don't be afraid when you fall off the horse. It's not, it's not the end of the world
it's an opportunity.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, it's if you feel socially obliged to eat cake on your birthday, for example, and you're going to upset somebody, so you do it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Do not beat yourself up about it. Just think, okay, I did that as a favour to somebody else, but tomorrow I'm back on my own. I'm back on program. As simple as that. And again, the other thing I want to talk about is the alcohol. Do not beat yourself up about alcohol. As long as you're not drinking JD and Coke, as long as you're not drinking the sweet mixers. If you're drinking low carb beers, I think America's got quite a few of the lower alcohol, low carb beers.
I don't see the point, but they do.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah. The Carling is a 3.7% lager here in the UK, but it is the lowest of the carbs. And again, if you're choosing wine, stay away from the sweet wines. I can recommend the grape Sauvignon Blanc as a dry white wine, and Pinot Noir as a dry red wine. Too. Absolutely, yeah. So please, folks, if you do enjoy social life, if your social life depends on having a drink with friends, do not beat yourself up about it. Look at me. I've achieved it while still carrying on with the good old British tradition of going down the pub, and I'll be going down the pub very, very shortly after this, Larry. So it's now 12 my time.
Throw one back for me with your buddies there.
Yeah. Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and it's 5 o'clock your end. So.
Yeah. Well, it's coming up at 6:22 a.m. right now, and I have actually a maintenance window I have to do at 8. But George, man, it's been so good talking to you. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and joining me on this first episode of Mission Carnivore. So you're the inaugural Mission Carnivore guy.
Something I want to say in my introduction. I am so proud that I am the first one to be on Mission Carnivore. You know, I discovered you from day one, and as you know, I was commenting you. By the way, I am known as Corporal G RFD, which is Corporal Goodenough reporting for duty chief. So if you see that on Larry's comments, Corporal G RFD chief, that is me reporting for duty basically. And I try and find something fairly useful to say on most things. I must admit I couldn't find anything on the dog food one because I don't have a dog. But when I find anything about veterans and my experiences there, I try and keep something funny as well. Yeah, that's me basically.
You do a good job.
I'm very proud to be part of your platoon. But I noticed this morning we're up to 2.07K. So that's 2,000. So yeah, I mean that's not a lot of platoon anymore, Larry.
It's a big.
You're now a regimental sergeant major.
We're getting a big formation. Yeah,
we certainly are. And so once you reach 3K, we're going to hit brigade level. So
there you go.
And then we go up to division.
Go to division. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's where I ended my career.
Yeah. So we're chasing brigade at the moment. So the rate you're growing, you should hit that, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And it's really just about growing so that we can be found by people, and that's by our brothers and sisters out there, so they can find this and hopefully connect with us in a way that's meaningful.
Absolutely, yeah.
So anyway, that's all I got. Stay on for a minute after I log off so we can talk, and I'm just going to end the recording here. So I got one thing to say to you guys: stay strong and overcome. Carnivore Soldier out.